Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Vince.
This is our special Tribute to Teenagers episode.
Great. Yeah, great.
Notice how my legs are made of ball bearings to help me move around.
I wish my legs were made of ball. We'll get to Spider-Man later. All right, this is also good. Both quotes from Spider-Man, so I won't forget to say at the end of the episode, we're reading Spider-Man, issue number 8. We've been going through the first 12 issues one by one. But our main read for today is Loki from 2004. We picked this because I remembered it being good and having really nice art. I think Chris vehemently will disagree with me here. That's okay. It's what I already said. It's from 2004, a 4-issue mini written by Robert Rodi, with art by Esad Ribic.
And it's been recollected a few times. It was made into a motion comic. I think if you were looking for a hardcover of it right now, it'd be called Thor and Loki Blood Brothers.
Okay.
Probably just because of branding, because Thor is better known, but now because the Loki show comes out, and I think the Loki show comes out today as of this episode that comes out, Wednesday, whatever, June 9th. That's the connection. So I don't know where the SEO is on Loki, but around like 2011 when it was reissued, Thor was more popular than Loki. So there we are.
Makes sense. I would say, is Loki more popular than Thor these days? It's hard to say.
I don't know. I mean, they both have movies, or Loki has a TV show, Thor has movies. I don't know. I mean, I think Loki's probably bigger than he was in 2004 when this comic came out.
Oh, for sure.
And probably Thor is too.
Well, I think maybe one of the reasons I really liked it back then was that it was like a nice little character study of Lodi. Maybe we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. Did I say Lodi? Loki.
Yeah, Loki by Rodi, not Lodi by
not Roki. What about Roku by Lodu? Have we read that one?
Now, Loki is the tiny little wrestler man, right? Kia?
There is a wrestler named Loki as well. LOW-KI. Yeah. But we're not reading about him. Loki, I don't really like that guy either. But
he has an outrageously deep fake voice.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a problem fellow as well. Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, we're reading about the Marvel Loki from 2004. So yeah, this is just a 4-issue miniseries. It starts with Loki having won. He has Thor captured, and it just goes from there. And it is, I think we were kind of talking offline. I want to get some of the complaints out of the way early here because Chris was saying not a lot happens. And you know what, Chris, you're right. I'm reading this and I'm like, oh boy, why did I recommend this thing? There really isn't a lot that's happening.
I think painted art was a novelty though in 2004 because I think only Alex Ross was doing it. And I want to say this was the first time I ever paid attention to Esad Ribic, who I think he did a Silver Surfer, like out of continuity story. And I know he did Jason Aaron's Thor God Butcher, probably early 2010s.
I know he did at least Wolverine covers because I can picture Wolverine on the cover in this style.
Yeah. So I mean, so it is striking, and I bet we couldn't tell because I read it on Marvel Unlimited. I have no idea what it looks like in paper print in 2004, but I have to imagine it's got like nice hardcover editions, kind of like a Marvel's, like an oversized hardcover with painted art. It's probably very striking if you're picking it up at a Barnes & Noble or a Borders or something.
I think I might even have a hardcover version somewhere. I don't know. Hard to say what I have in a box somewhere in Texas. But yeah, it's if I had to complain about the art, I would say that the colors are very muted and there's not a whole lot of contrast. But the whole thing does take place in Asgard, and it is like meant to be a little bit of a somber kind of a book, with Loki just kind of being in charge of everything and not being great at it. We should probably just jump into the story.
Yeah, and people called it. The reviews of it called it Shakespearean, which is another way to say they have a lot of talking and not a lot of physical action. Kind of like, I only watched the first few seasons of Game of Thrones, but you know how Game of Thrones would just have like, I'm just going to sit here and talk for 10 minutes, like next to a candle. Like, that's what this felt like.
Well, I mean, that first Thor movie is pretty, Shakespearean. So, there's some of that, I guess. I mean, Kenneth Branagh directed it, for God's sakes.
Yeah. But yeah, I think let's just jump right into it. We'll talk more about it as we go, because I guess that's how podcasts work. All right, so we open with Thor being captured. Loki is so proud of himself. He's got him. He's in the town square or whatever. He's gloating to everybody. And this little shit kid comes up and just like what is he like kicks him or slaps him or something?
Well, Loki's like, nobody will look me in the eye. Nobody.
Yeah.
Everybody would talk shit about me before, but now no one will. And this kid's like, fuck you. Still I will. I still will. I don't care.
He said, "I'll never bow down to you." And Loki looks at him, and he like flashes back to his own childhood, refusing to follow Odin. He's like, "You're not my dad." And he's like, "Oh my goodness, the young one, I see what you see. Trust me when I say that everything will be okay," or something like that, And the kid spits in his face. LOL.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So Loki's in charge now. He's super just reveling in it. He says, "All right, let me go sit in the throne." And immediately everybody's coming up to him just for like kingly stuff. They're like, "Hey, we need your help with this." "Hey, boss, you locked up Heimdall, and so the Rainbow Road is just kind of unprotected
Rainbow
now."
Bridge. It's not Mario
there's
Kart.
just kart racers.
Sorry, Rainbow Road, Rainbow Bridge, whatever, same thing. Oh wow, that'd be a good crossover. Has anybody ever? I'm sure somebody's thought of that.
That would be good for like the Mario Kart phone game to have like a Thor tie-in.
Yeah, when Disney buys Nintendo, they can give us that crossover we've all been asking for. Mario Kart meets Thor.
Oh my god, a Mario Thor crossover, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be better than Batman meets Fortnite, right? Which is a real thing, and apparently one of the best-selling comics out there right now.
Of course. It's Batman and Fortnite.
Fortnite's not like a person, is it?
I don't know. Maybe Batman cross Fortnite. I don't know. I get it in my DC
that.
Unlimited email every week. They're like, "Hey, Batman meets Fortnite," and I'm like, I don't care about.
Are you sure it's not like Fortnite, like Knight, like a different character?
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah. The Dark Knight meets the Fortnite. I love it.
Oh wow! How did I not think of that? All right, great. All right, I think we're slightly off topic now.
We're a podcast. That's what podcasts do. Oh, it's
Like
Batman
I said, I'm
Fortnite.
brainstorming this $1 million idea for DC.
Yeah,
they're gonna love it.
That's a good one. Vince, what did you say?
It's called Batman / Fortnite 0 Point. You have to have a subtitle.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So Loki says, "All right, everybody, stop bothering me. I need you all to leave me alone." Hela shows up. Oh, this other woman. Who was she? Who showed up? I didn't write down her name. It really. She shows up in issue 2, I think.
The concubine.
Before the concubine, there's just like a random old friend of his or something. It's not important. She doesn't come back again either. But it did. So it's just a whole bunch of nobodies, and he says, "Go away from me." And Hela shows up, who is the goddess of death, and she's like, "Hey,
Kate Blanchett from the movies."
Yeah, she's like, "Hey, here you're gonna execute Thor, huh?" And he's like, "Whoa! I didn't say nothing about executing. What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Well, I'm the goddess of death, so I'm real excited to get that soul. So just go ahead and execute. Cool." And she's talking to him about like, "Well, who are you now, Loki? You've won. You're a trickster no longer. You're Lord now," she said. And he's like, gotta kind of think about that. Like, okay, what am I gonna do? I'm not gonna kill Thor. He's my brother, whatever. He pays a quick visit to Thor, and then he pays a visit to Lady Sif, who is also captured. That's the cliffhanger for issue 1. It's not really much of a cliffhanger, though.
I was gonna say that's already issue 2 by the time he goes and talks to Sif.
Yeah. So issue 2, he goes and talks to. It is, like I said, a lot of conversations here.
There's also, and my other criticism about the art, which I guess it's some people like it, but it's very like Conan the Barbarian, like pinup style art, as far as like the concubine shows up with like her thong like all the way up her butt, where he's just like, "Oh boy, I wonder who this is for."
Yeah,
I'm not particularly whatever for that in particular, but I do generally like that Conan style of art. It does a good job of kind of evoking that.
Yeah, I mean that's the I guess the minus of doing that sort of like Italian style of like art is that all the women are drawn like in a really cheesecakey way. Even Hela, Kate Blanchett's character is like really sexualized, and it's kind of, I mean, I guess it's fine, but it is kind of funny that she's like, "I could kill you with a touch," and it's like, yeah, but let's see her boobs. That's what we're here to see.
But it's also like different for comic art because everybody's kind of thick. Like they're all not 18-inch waists. Also in this art style, which is also kind of how Alex Ross's style is, because I think, or anybody who uses like people models for their art, like people are just not as skinny as they are in normal comics.
Well, but I feel like Alex Ross does a good job of like drawing relatively normal looking humans. All of these are like all look like professional wrestlers. They all have like
that might be
shoulders and arms.
I do think part of that is also maybe intentional because Loki is very much the skinniest person throughout all this, and he's very much drawn to look like a loser throughout this book, I think.
They give him like really bad teeth for some reason, which is is that a character trait?
I think
of Loki's?
all the teeth in this book are bad. Like for his like quote unquote realistic this painting style is like everybody's teeth gaps are weird in this whole book. Like Thor's are, Hela's are. It's weird.
I literally cannot say I noticed a single tooth gap.
I was looking because Loki's teeth are like weird. Loki, because I don't know. I started reading reviews about this. Maybe people got more interpretation. This is an aged Loki. This is thousands of years in the future, so his teeth are now bad. I don't know about that. I think that might be a bit reading into it. I will say though, reading from this first issue, if I have like a very cursory knowledge of Loki pre the movies, I think that it's an interesting interpretation to like we're going to now see the sad clown and the realistic portrayal of like how he's felt people have viewed him as a laughingstock for the last 30 years of real life Marvel publishing. Like, I think that's an interesting hook mixed with an art style that I'm not familiar with in 2004. I can see why Kia would have been interested.
I loved it back then. I honestly, by the time I got to issue 4, I turned back around on it and ended up liking it again. I think issue 2 and 3 are totally skippable, to be honest. If anyone's listening to this and you like want to read it for yourself, read 1, read 4, and you're good.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'll spoil my thoughts on it at the end when I give my recommendation of what to do as the best way to read this comic.
So that being said, let's get into issue 2 and 3 now. So he goes and talks to Lady Sif, who just like riles him up, calls him Loki Lackeyson, which is what all the kids used to call him and tease him about. And then she like starts beating him up, and Loki needs the guard to help him, and the guard like delays helping him as well, which I really like, a nice little touch. And Sif has just got him so riled up, he's like, "All right, well, fuck you. Thor dies at dawn. Bam, out of here." Which previously he was telling everyone like, "Hey, where's everyone else getting this idea that I'm gonna execute Thor?" And he's like, "All right, gonna do it now."
Yeah, we get some weird business about like that he shaved Lady Sif's head or something, that she used to have blonde hair in a previous flashback, which does make her look like She-Ra. But now she's got dark hair because I guess she's wearing a wig or it was like given to her by somebody. I don't know how that works. And she's like, but now everybody likes my black hair, so the joke's on you.
I didn't think I don't know what
that was a very fable-y like Bible story of like what a twist. I thought it was fine. I thought it was interesting. Also explained to me like why Sif has black hair and nobody else in Asgard does. I was like, that's fine. Did she have blonde hair before and then they changed it like mid continuity? Or can't picture her with blonde hair, but I'll be honest, I've not read all of the Jack Kirby Stanley Thor. I think it's their worst stuff.
There's very little Thor that I've read.
I've heard that Jack Kirby's art is good still, and I'm sure there is some of this because what I have read, they do like retell like Thor and Loki like flashback stories where like they go to the Giants world and like just retell actual Norse mythology stories.
Yeah.
So like that's fun.
There were a lot of flashbacks here, but they were flashbacks to just like other conversations and character interactions, and not a whole lot of like major touchstone moments that they were flashing back to, which I think might have made this book a lot more, I don't know, given you something more to hook onto, I guess.
I think the fact that both me and Chris read Fantastic Four Grand Design in between now and the last episode also may inform that idea.
Makes sense, yeah.
Right.
I
mean, I don't know who the ideal reader is. I think the ideal reader is like sort of familiar with Loki because they don't explain like who Baldur is and who so I feel like they are targeting like high school kids who've had like a week of Norse mythology.
Right, and I don't think you can publish this now after the movie interpretation. Like it just doesn't.
100%.
It doesn't square up.
Yeah.
No. So Carnilla, who's a character I've definitely never heard of, comes in. She had previously helped Loki with taking over, I guess. And she's like, "Hey, Loki, you promised to spare Baldur's life and deliver him to me. So let's go ahead and make that happen." And Loki said, "Yeah, I did promise that. Didn't say when." and he's a real asshole. So he says, "Get on my face. I'm gonna go talk to Balder right now because I got him locked up."
And Balder is from like Baldur's Gate, I'm assuming, right?
I thought it was from Balderdash.
I mean, he's a Norse god who is kind of a Christ figure. I guess not to get into comparative mythology, but he's the one who dies and comes back.
Okay.
Osiris, I guess, would be the non-blasphemous other god that does that.
Okay. And he, if I'm remembering correctly from like any of the Thor I've read, he was kind of, and like based on my context here, he was Thor's like kind of tough friend who is a little bit of a fighter. Is that accurate at all?
Yes.
Or no?
Yeah. He's like Adam Warlock is the Marvel Comics version. Like he's the like pure-hearted guy who's just like almost too good for this world kind of guy, and that's why he's like literally like singing with birds like a Disney princess when Loki's flashing back.
There was like he has a lot of weird maybe less defined powers, I guess. He's saying that, hey, when I got struck by Hodor's arrow, I didn't die, but I did see the multiverse and I saw a lot of Lokis and a lot of different versions of Loki and a lot of different versions of Thor and all that. But hey, you know what I never saw? I never saw Loki ruling. And Loki's like, hey, you speak to confound me. I will not listen. He gets out of there. It's like, I'm not listening to you.
I like that.
It's clearly weighing on him.
I liked that idea. I kind of wish there had been more of that in the book.
That's the most interesting
thing. That's the most interesting thing to me. It was like, like all the different Loki continuities, and like where somewhere times that Loki is Thor's dad, sometimes where Loki is this, all these different, sometimes Thor is a frog. That's different, but I like that idea, and Loki, that really like weighing on his mind. I think that's a cool character touch to be like, I'm just, because I think it was in the third issue, right, that he had this idea of like, I always have to play this role because the fates force me to, but then everybody criticizes me as the individual. Is a very like sad clown story type, and I like that.
We touch on the multiverse stuff a little bit more in the next issue with Karnilla again. She comes back at the end of this issue to like apologize to Loki, and Loki says, "All right, I need your help with something," and presumably to like kind of look into this whole multiverse business.
Which is probably the one plot thread that maybe the Loki TV show might carry over, because it's supposed to be like a time traveling multiverse kind of show. Where he's got to fix the timeline. So that may actually, if I'm the thing I'm interested in most from this book, it's probably going to be in the TV show. I'm excited for. So. Yeah,
that's awesome. So issue 3, everybody is building the stage where they're going to be killing Thor, and it's like, what is this place where they've built it? It looks like a big dam, and it's like anyways,
it's got to be some type of hanging scaffolding that they can build in a day.
Yeah, it's like a big scaffold, except they're just going to kill Thor. It's like in Skyrim, when you show up the first time and they have that dialogue about how they executed that guy. That's what they're going to do to Thor.
And the like head builder or whatever is saying, "Look, boss, we're making great time here. We're ahead of schedule." And Loki's just like, "You're not ahead of schedule enough." And
you told me about this 4 hours ago. That's when that's when you contracted me 4 hours ago.
He's still got to deal with this problem of the rainbow. I think I wrote Rainbow Road again. The Rainbow Bridge. I really was expecting this Rainbow Bridge business to come back with how much they mention it throughout, but I think this is the last time it comes up actually. Where Heimdall,
it's just reminding us from the first issue, like he still hates the job.
Yeah. His like advisor says, Heimdall's locked up. He said he'll still guard it if you let him out. Like he doesn't care about any of this other stuff. He just wants to guard the realm. And Loki says, what does that guy think I am? An idiot? No way. So he talks to Karnilla again, who does some of her hocus pocus business to show him all the multiverses. And, there's a few different pinups here of just like seeing these different versions of Loki, different versions of Thor. And this is where in every version it ends. Loki's life ends with him chained to a rock with a poisonous worm up above him, like threatening to kill him. Yeah. Oof, sad end for every version of Loki.
Yeah, and again, that's for the high school students. They're like, oh yeah, that's right.
I have to imagine that'll show up in the show at some point. I would love that. All right, I want to see a big poisonous worm. That's all. So he goes to visit Thor again, and he's like, "Damn, man, why you always gotta win?" Kind of that stuff that you were talking about, Vince, with the fates haven't decided all that. And there's a flashback to a particular fight of theirs where he's kind of got Thor beat, but Thor always rises again. As a really nice panel here that I liked, where it's just the silhouette of Loki, and there's lightning in the background as Thor is kind of rising again. I don't know. It was a very simple panel, but I enjoyed it. It stuck out to me. Then we talked to Lady Frigga for a little while, and he calls her mom. Loki is like, "Hey, mom." I ain't your mom. Don't call me that. Go talk to your dad. He's like, well, if Odin's my dad, then you got to be my mom. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Frigga seems to mess up her pronouns and her addresses as it's convenient for her in the sentence. When she's trying to manipulate him, it's like, how dare you treat me and your father this way? It's like, you just said I wasn't your son, though. So, like,
yeah.
Which we didn't really talk about it. Just for anyone who doesn't know this part of Loki's history, he is not the daughter or the son of Odin and Frigga. Or Freya, right? What?
Frigga. I think it's Frigga.
It's Frigga here. I don't remember them.
I mean, it's
Renee Russo
it's part
in
of
the movies.
Yeah, because it's
baby.
She's like, how dare you besmirch the good honor of Renee Russo.
Renee Russo.
No, because it's Thor's Day is Thursday, and then Frigga had Friday. That's who that's named after. That makes sense. And Wednesday is Woden's Day. So
I wasn't sure if there was a different different names that they could use. I don't remember hearing Frigga before. But anyways, they're not his real parents. Odin killed his real dad, and they adopted him. Basically, what is it? Jon Snow style, right? Yeah. It's like if Jon Snow knew his history.
Like, it definitely comes up in Thor 1, the movie, like as a major plot point, and then I think it's just kind of like swept under the rug.
Forgotten.
And then maybe brought up as convenient in Thor 2, and then not really acknowledged in any of the Avengers or Thor 3.
What? It's more like it's not more like Jon Snow. It's more like that other the dumb guy from the Navy.
Theon Greyjoy.
Theon Greyjoy. Yeah, that's who Odin is. I mean Loki. Theon Greyjoy for sure.
Yeah. The guy who also
were you seeing something, Chris?
I will say it's shocking to me, like how, I know people have their criticisms of the Marvel movies, but like in Thor Ragnarok and he's only in like one scene and it's like green screened and whatever, but just having Odin show up in that one scene to just like talk to his sons, I was like, it's amazing that this works at all. But it's like a surprisingly like emotional like moment. You're like, wow, I've seen these characters like in a bunch of movies for over a decade, and I'm like weirdly attached to them now.
Yeah. And the weird thing is like this. Okay, I guess spoilers for some Avengers movies, the most watched movies ever. Like Loki dies in Avengers Infinity War, and so the Loki of this TV show is actually the Loki at the end of Avengers 1 who hasn't had the character growth. So I'm intrigued to see how that's going to happen, because he has had none character growth from Thor Ragnarok. Like that one doesn't exist because it's an earlier version of himself. So
that is interesting. I completely forgot he died.
Yeah.
I forgot that as well.
There's so much. In 23 movies, some things happen that we forget. Yeah.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, like Thor Ragnarok is one I've seen more than once, and like I said, that scene where they go back to like that weird like dreamscape, because I mean, again, spoiler alert for a movie that came out 4 years ago or 3 years ago, and then everyone saw Odin is dead at that point.
Yeah.
But then, like has that like heart to heart with his kids. Like it works to me so much better than this, where I was just like, it just lands like a thud when Loki's like, admit it, Pop. Like you only had me to make Thor look good. And he like looks sad and says dough. And you're just like, really?
Yeah, there's not like, I think if anything, there's something nice about like, okay, Loki kind of doing a victory lap and talking to all these people who are part of his universe. But it's almost too many people sometimes. And so this Odin one was like almost out of nowhere. It feels like we'd barely gotten any mentions of Odin before this. I was like, well, yeah, what's Odin up to? He's just like kind of morosely sitting in this room doing nothing.
And it's, I don't know, like, again, I feel like I'm being too negative, but it's like literally every scene is like Loki just shows up to Thor's cell. He shows up to Sif's cell. He shows up to Odin, who's like under house arrest. You're like, dude, like, can any other scene start any other way?
Yeah, there's really, it's this exact same. Either somebody approaches him or he goes to visit somebody, and that's it. So yeah, he goes and talks to Odin, tells him, hey, he's going to behead Thor. Then his real mom, Farbauti of Jotunheim, shows up. which again isn't really much of a cliffhanger because she doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I like this twist, but there's no payoff to it.
Yeah, there's zero payoff here.
Because like the first couple of issues, there's like you'd have one panel. You're so stuck to Loki, and then you'd have one panel of like some masked stranger being like, Loki, must find Loki. And then when it finally pays off, it's like, I'm your mom. And then she's like a yokel and he's embarrassed.
yeah, everyone's like, hey, look at Loki's mom. And they shut up when he turns around. But he tells his guards like, hey, we're firmly getting into issue 4 now with the beginning of this here, but tells his guards, hey, go make just get my mom a room far away from the courts, and yeah, we'll be fine. So that's it. That's the last we see of her.
I do like the way that she's written, in that like they do a little bit of the light Shakespearean, thee and thou, but she's written like she's out of the Canterbury Tales. Like she spells, letters or words are spelled in the Old English version, and he's just like, "Oh God, you sound so embarrassing."
I like that. So after he sends his mom away, everybody is still trying to talk to him about King stuff, and he just like literally vanishes and just ducks out of the room. Does not want to deal with it.
Yeah, he's like, no Rainbow Road for anyone. The kart racing is closed.
Yeah, no more kart racers. No
more Special Cup for y'all.
And has there ever been a storyline where, I don't know, like Mojo tries to take over Asgard and turn it into like a game show filled with cool attractions and a Rainbow Road? That's a story I want to see.
Whoa, let's put that on the list.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Yeah. All right. So
at least for like a one-off, like super special, like type story, that would be good.
Is Mojo and Arcade the same character, or are they different?
No, Arcade is the one. He's an assassin who puts you in a pinball machine.
Okay.
Arcade would be good too. Arcade could handle that. Mojo is more like they have a TV dimension, so they're airing this stuff. Arcade is like doing it for his own fun, I think.
Yes, he's just a very inefficient hitman, basically, who kidnaps you and then puts you in a pinball machine.
Yeah. So he sleeps with that concubine from issue 1. We barely mentioned that concubine, but one of his enemies sent her over to be like, hey, how about a free concubine? And he's like, nah, no thanks. But he sleeps with her here. The execution stage is ready to go. But we kind of get a few shots of Thor throughout this book. He's chained up completely, but we see him like making a fist in captivity. I'm like, okay. Hela shows up, and she is so excited to take Thor's soul. She's pumped for it. Loki's kind of giving her the silent treatment about it, and she's like, all right, what's going on? You've been promising everybody you're going to kill Thor, right? You're gonna back out now. What's the line she said? You have built a splendid stage upon which no one is to act. I like that line. And Loki kind of like reveals the whole thing right here again, which is why I'm like, if you're gonna read just a little bit of it, maybe even just this issue. But Loki is like, my plan is to spare Thor so that he can see me as a brother again. We used to love each other until Lady Sif and Balder and Odin and all these stories and everything just kind of compelled us into opposite directions and all that. And so he's planning to trick everybody by releasing Thor. And so that's his big plan. And as he's heading to the stage to do that, Thor escapes. Shows up. Loki's like, no, listen, you don't understand. That's not what's going on here. Just wait. And Thor just smashes down his hammer, and that's the end of the book.
What a twist.
What a twist. Which I like, it's a very abrupt ending, but I kind of like how, like, if this book is just the 4 issues where Loki is now in charge, like from the beginning of when he's won to the end of when it's all over. Like there's something kind of nice about that. I very much recognize that this is not a good book, but I still really enjoyed it. Like there are nice elements to it, and maybe part of it's me remembering it from when I was younger and remembering when I didn't know all this other stuff about Loki. But for the time, I really enjoyed it. But not something that I could actually recommend.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Like I said, I mean, like the Thor Ragnarok and Avengers Infinity War does such a good job with the Loki character that, like, reading this, you're like, well, this is kind of the baby steps of it. But I do feel like, and even what is it, Thor is it Thor 2 at some point, or is it the beginning of Ragnarok where he's impersonating Odin?
It's at the end of Thor 2. That's the cliffhanger, and I guess they try to be like, "Isn't that intriguing?" And then they just immediately like destroy that concept with the beginning of Thor Ragnarok. Like, yeah, we're not gonna do that. Loki's just turned into like this weird, like fucked up, like court where it's just like it's very decadent rather than like he's an incompetent leader. It's just more like I want to see Sam Neill and Matt Damon do plays about me.
Yeah, like
dude, I read a spoiler for who plays Hela in the new Thor movie. It's gonna be great. I'm really excited.
I feel like the new Thor movies do such a good job of like exploring like what does Loki do now, that this to me, and I know it came out before, so it's not fair, but I'm like, this is really just baby steps of like what would, what if it was from Loki's point of view? Like there's not quite enough of a story to me that could sort of hang a 4-issue series on.
Yeah.
Which I do like the concept. I think it's interesting. And I think if it had leaned more into the idea of like why am I fated to lose? Like what's going on as far as that side of things, I think it could be interesting. But they only sort of touched at it, and then he's like, no, wait, I can change, and then he can't because it's too late. I don't know. Like I feel like there wasn't enough stuff to kind of get us to that point. So the art is generally okay. I do think the Marvel Unlimited version, parts of it are so muddy looking that I didn't like, a lot of it, but the flashbacks are good. So like I said, I don't want to hate on it. And I do think the ideal way to read this, once the pandemic is relatively over and you're vaccinated, just walk into a Barnes and Nobles and just flip through this.
Yeah, that's all you need.
Like just read the first few pages and then flip through it and read the end, and you're like, I got it. I don't need to spend $20 on this.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, I agree with all that. I think that some of the problems with this book are on the objective side, really, where it's just like plotting and pacing and maybe trying to do too much while not doing enough at the same time in other areas. Like there's issues with it, no question, but it's still, good ideas, like you were saying, good roots of stuff.
Yeah. Because like I said,
go ahead.
It is, it is funny how much like Thor or Loki in 2004 is like a villain that I did not care about. I was like, oh yeah, he created the Avengers. That's the big like trivia fact I know about Loki, but I don't really care about him.
So Vince, what did you think about this whole thing?
I mean, I think the points are that like it doesn't do much. Like I think issue 2 is literally 2 conversations and maybe 2 scenes, and that's it. Like there's not much going on, but then it introduces a lot of plot points that it just kind of abandons. Whatever's going on with the concubine, whatever's going on with Loki's mom is just kind of just disappears. And it just kind of abruptly ends. I like the art style. I have my big problem with Esad Ribic's art is that sometimes the figures and characters are hard to track between each scene.
Yeah,
like, I'm like,
especially with a lot of flashbacks.
Yeah,
the flashbacks aren't particularly distinct either, where like a different art style or anything. Yeah,
I remember that with his Jason Aaron run, The God Butcher, which is a cool concept, but I was like, I have a hard time just like reading this sometimes. And tracking the action. I thought it was like interesting. I think it doesn't work post movies. But I generally like the concept, and especially mid 2000s, you're like, we're going to see a dark and gritty interpretation of a jokester character is interesting. It's not Batman Man Who Laughs, obviously. But it's kind of trying to bark up that tree, which I think a lot of mid 2000s comics were trying to do. So I'm okay with it. There was a motion comic of it, so it clearly had some legs. They made those of like Iron Man Extremis and a few other ones around this time period. I don't know where you can find it. Probably on YouTube now. It's like lightly animated panels, about an hour long, 15 minutes per issue.
It's like flash animation where they just like cut out the figures and let them kind of like wave around.
I'll highly recommend the Watchmen one of those still. You can watch all of Watchmen in about like 3 hours. Each episode's about 20 minutes long. And it's
you can find all of those, Vince, in a trash can behind Best Buy.
Yeah. So Big Lots is where I got my Watchmen DVD. So
it's true.
Great. A good Big Lots shout out, one of our sponsors. Okay, so we
code some of my friends read comics for 20% off. Tell them we sent you.
Yeah, tell them we sent you to Big Lots. They're not going to go, what the hell are you talking about? But you can just tell them that, Vince said you can get some free stuff. Just walk out of it. You'll be okay.
Do you need a television antenna and a bed and some plant feeders?
Television antenna. All right.
Big Alliance is a good story.
I think
like
that's
them.
I think that's it for Loki, though. Anything else we got to say about it?
No.
Move on to. I mean, at least it gave us some stuff to talk about. Hey, it's always
I
the
thought it was
whole
interesting.
point.
I'm glad that we finally read it. Kia's recommendation from 2004, 17 years later. Finally read it. Kia, you should.
Yeah, didn't hold up. So it's all right.
Like I'm generally so nervous. I mean, we recently read Winter Soldier, which I think held up really well. All that like mid 2000s stuff, I'm like, oh no, this is going to be really embarrassing. Like I haven't reread any of the like Bendis Daredevil or any of that stuff. I'm like, I liked it. I'm sure it's good.
That's the funny thing is like the mid 2000s spent all of its marketing shitting on the 90s. It's like the 90s were the worst comics ever. And now looking back, I'm like, maybe comics just 10 to 15 years ago nobody has any nostalgia for, and you just need you need 20 to 30 years like beyond that to be like, yeah, that was the good times. So
right.
Maybe.
And you know, like the secret, like with most pop culture is replaceable commercial garbage. Comic books, like 90% of it is that. So
Yeah.
It's like as time passes, you kind of more get separated from it, and you only remember the good '90s comics, and you only remember the good aughts comics, and you don't even think about like the 100 really shitty books that you were reading every month.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh boy, I can't believe I really thought this was going to be the time that Booster Gold was going to have a great series.
Yeah. Well, speaking of old comics that nobody remembers that sucked, it's time to get into Amazing Spider-Man number 8. Does anybody know?
No, I respect
Spider-Man?
that transition. Everybody loves it.
Oh yes, people have heard of and remember Spider-Man, so we're okay. As Vince was saying at the beginning, this is the special tribute to teenagers issue, which
with hyphenated. I've never seen teenager hyphenated.
Teenagers, yeah, so weird. How do you what? Nobody spells teenagers like that. Oh my god. But we got a robot on the cover. We got the Human Torch. You got Spider-Man like boxing Flash Thompson on the cover. Whoa, this book's gonna be packed with everything. The Human Torch story is actually like a bonus story at the end, which we'll get to. So don't expect Human Torch in the main story. We'll definitely get to that at the end. But opening up on our main story here, the kids are all in class, and they're wheeling in this big robot. What's it called? The mind? The
living brain.
Living brain, yeah. And it's this big robot. It's on ball bearings for some reason. It has weird hands.
Terrible design. Terrible.
I don't know what this computer is supposed to be necessarily, but it can answer any question in the world. As long as you input the data or something.
But the UI is so.
The UI
it's
bad.
still fucking 1963.
Well,
so the UI is it prints out the answer on paper. Okay.
Well, hold on. We'll get to that. I don't want to spoil that part because it's one of my favorite.
But it's in binary.
Okay.
So then some human has to decode it.
Listen,
I love it.
This computer is very poorly made. We'll get to that. Don't worry. Meanwhile, Flash and Peter are just kind of like bickering in class because honestly, they both suck. And Flash Thompson pushes Peter, breaks his glasses. Really, this would have been a great excuse for Peter to be like, "Hey, teacher, Flash Thompson broke my glasses."
Yeah, but everybody, but we're in PE and we have a coach. I don't know if this is a coach. This is Dr.
We're not in PE yet. Wait a minute. We're not in PE.
Yeah, not even a coach.
We're in
what the teacher does feels very much like a coach at my high school would have done. So,
okay. So we're still skip it. Calm down, Vince. You're very excited about this fight scene. I can tell. So these two guys, these burly guys who wheeled in the machine, they're like listening to everything it can do. And the teacher's like, "Hey, Peter, you're the smartest kid in class. You come up and demo the machine for everybody." And teacher's like, not the teacher, the scientist they brought in. It's like, "All right, here's how this thing works. You got it? You understand? Great." And these guys are listening like, "Oh my God, this machine knows everything. We can use it to predict horse races and elections. So we need to steal it."
Yeah.
And meanwhile,
this is a side job from stealing 100 puppies.
Yes, they are very clearly evil gentlemen. The kids now are all thinking of like, what question are we going to ask this thing? And they think, what is Spider-Man's real identity? And Peter Parker is standing there in front of this machine, so sad that he has to feed all of this information into the computer and has just accepted his fate that like, this computer's gonna know exactly who Spider-Man is. Shit. And then like the kids are calling information like, he's about 5'10", he's about 160 pounds, Forest Hills area a lot. He's the most wonderful, heroic, glamorous man in the world. Man, he's a heroic nut. And so, Peter Parker's putting all this information in there. I don't know how it's gonna know.
To be fair to Peter, there are a lot of clues that it's somebody from his high school.
There really is, yeah. And he's super nervous about the output, and he's like imagining it's going to print out Peter Parker. But as Vince was saying earlier, it's just like a bunch of letters and numbers, and it's up to Peter Parker to take it home to translate overnight. So poor kid, he's the smartest kid in the class. Now he's got extra homework.
That's amazing. He's just like, the scientist is like, I'm going to leave this in your care, teenager I just met.
What is the whole point of having a computer if you have to go translate it later?
Yeah.
That's what the computer is there to do, to compute it for you.
I mean, this is how like the UIs were of computers then, is that they would, print out their answers. And then I guess probably in binary, and then somebody would have to like then compute a little more. But I'm like, this is the living brain. I guess we're doing road shows to high schoolers. I would hope the UI would be a little better at this point. And just that extra step of the application. It's also Dr. Warren. I don't know if this is Miles Warren or not.
It's not, but they should, if they, like Marvel Unlimited this again, they should make it Miles Warren.
Yeah.
So Peter has this paper now that he has to take home, and Flash Thompson, who is not much of a science guy, says, you can't be trusted with this vital information, Parker. Give me that paper. I'll go home and decode it. And so they scuffle around for a little bit, and this is when the teacher says, hey, y'all need to quit biting in class.
The scientist.
Yeah. They said, just go to the gym and fight each other there.
I want to establish also, Peter broke his arm last month. He's been in a sling since last month. They have not mentioned it, but
he's fine now.
He's fine now.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for
it's happening in real time, Vince, which is one thing that's hard to remember about these old Marvel comics. He is going through high school in real time.
You shouldn't be boxing anyone a month. He shouldn't be. Okay, I've never seen a high school that has a boxing ring either, like a legit boxing ring.
I've definitely seen coaches be like, "Let them fight, let's do it."
Yeah.
I mean, we had some shitty coaches in our high school, Kia, and I feel like they would have encouraged this.
Yeah,
I think our theater teacher might have
just gotten
encouraged
some
this too.
wrestling mats.
Yeah. So Parker and Flash are fighting. Parker keeps dodging all of Flash's blows at the last minute with his super speed, but to everyone else's eye, it's like, wow, Parker's such a wuss. He's just keeping out of range. And I'm like, I would probably be a lot more impressed if I was watching this in person.
That's also like a pro strat for boxers, right? Is to
Floyd Mayweather is the most successful boxer in history, and that's what he does, is he never gets punched.
Yeah. Parker gives Flash kind of a weak punch to the head that knocks him completely out of the ring, and everyone's like, oh, what was that? And he's like, oh, I probably tripped on something. What a fluke. Upstairs, those evil dudes are trying to steal the machine now when the scientist walks in on them, kind of lifting the thing. And he's like, hey, what are y'all doing? And I think they really easily could have just been like, hey, you hired us to move this thing, right? But no, they punch him out and accidentally bump into the machine, and they short circuit it or something, and now this thing's going haywire and is turned into a violent machine of destruction, which, like, I don't understand why this living brain has that capacity built into it either. But
there's not been a lot of bug testing on the living brain. No. And Horace and Jasper, aren't the smartest workers. So
that's true. It is so funny. Like, this book really should just be Peter and Flash finally having a showdown, but they're like, no, he has to have like a Spider-Man thing to do too. This living brain is such an afterthought.
It is, but it seems like they dedicate way too many panels to this living brain. I'm like, I get it, guys. Like, he's fighting this thing and it's out of control. I felt like there was too much dedicated to that, and the issue was still only 18 pages before we get to the backup.
Before the Human Torch.
Yeah, I know they're not doing fill-ins at this point, but this does almost feel like a fill-in when the second half of the book is just him fighting the brain, and you're like, who cares? The brain is stupid.
So Peter and Flash are still kind of fighting, and someone comes in and yells, "Oh no, the brain! Somebody's got to help us!" And Flash turns his head while Peter was mid-punch and knocks him out. And everyone is like, "Boo, Peter! You should have pushed him when his head was turned." When really, it's just like Flash wasn't focused on the fight. Like, what? It's his fault. Peter was an amazing fighter, and whatever. So Peter just picks up Flash, takes him to the locker room.
It is a very high school mentality of like, there's no winning in this situation. Like Peter could just like outclass him in every way, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's not fair. You probably paid for lessons or something, like a nerd." And you're like, okay, he's clearly better at this.
Yeah.
And the end state is that a high schooler gets a concussion. Like there's no win state for this.
There's really no win state.
Flash
I remember
definitely gets a concussion.
Yeah, like Flash, that would a punch from Spider-Man, that might kill you, man. I don't know. So
he's pulling his punch. Give Peter a break.
Yeah. So Peter, takes him to the locker room, runs out, dresses up as Spider-Man, does his whole thing. Way too many pages of fight here. Was there anything like? There were some like nice creative moments, and he's constantly being like, "Hey, this robot's gonna remember everything that I do. Oh no, it's gonna learn." It's
like a Taskmaster kind of thing, right? Is it?
Yeah.
It like memorizes each of your moves and shit. And I do like that the living brain almost rolls down the stairs. I think that's a good couple of panels.
It is. Yes, where Spider-Man like hangs onto the brain, shoots like a swing, like a lasso.
It's not a brain, by the way. It's a robot. It's just called the living brain. It's not Krang.
Right. And they swing through the window and then back into the school. Yeah. It was nice. But meanwhile, he has he's deactivated the machine. The crooks are trying to run away. They run into the locker room.
No, they specifically say we'll lose them in the locker room, which locker rooms famously are mazes and famously have many exit points.
But they run in and immediately trip over Flash, and he's a hero. I do like this at the end where Peter uses this to his advantage. It's like, hey, Flash, you weren't anywhere around when Spider-Man was here, and you took care of these crooks all on your own, and you're about Spider-Man's height. Hey, I think you're Spider-Man, which I thought was amusing.
Yeah, that was great. That makes it all worth it just to set up Flash like this.
Yes, and last panel.
It really does, though. I wish, though, Flash would be like, that's bullshit. I remember that one time I dressed up like Spider-Man to try to trick you, and then I got kidnapped by Dr. Doom.
Just a month ago. So Peter, and the very last panel is Peter says, "Oof, that's all taken care of. I'm just going to tell everyone I lost the paper with the information about Spider-Man."
Because we're to believe that the living brain actually did figure it out, right?
Yeah. Who knows? It's left for you to decide, reader.
I'm sure it could. Like, I could figure it out.
I bet. I don't think the machine would have had enough information before, but I think after fighting Spider-Man and after encountering Peter inputting the information, I think now the living brain does know.
Yeah, that checks out. I was looking at our comic pitches that we've come up with over here, and so we have one of that. We also have a superhero whodunit on like Spider-Man Far From Home, the most recent Spider-Man movies. Like Spider-Man is definitely in our class. He came to our school trip to Europe. Like if it was just like Knives Out or like a whodunit, we'd like everybody just lock themselves in a room and be like, one of us is Spider-Man. We're gonna figure it out. Like that would be fun. That would be a fun story.
Or like it's a villain who's got them locked up and says, "All right, y'all got to tell me, or else I'm gonna execute one at a time." I don't know.
A good bottle episode of a Netflix show that has no budget, where you're just like, we're all stuck in this room. We have to find out who Spider-Man is.
Yeah. Yep.
That'd be good.
So wait, we're not done with this Spider-Man though, because did you forget? This is our special tribute to teenagers. We have, I think, maybe the worst Spider-Man story I have ever read right now in these backup pages, where so the premise is Peter Parker wants to go visit the Human Torch's girlfriend and just like show her that Spider-Man is better. And Human Torch got there first, and he's showing off his cars and his flames for all the ladies. And Peter Parker's like, man, what a show off.
What a sympathetic hero we have here in Spider-Man.
Yes. So he makes a bat, like a flying bat, out of web.
And remember issue 3 when or issue was it 2? Whenever Human Torch was gonna go fight, it was Doc Ock, right? And then issue 3. And then Spider-Man's like, thanks, Human Torch, you really inspired me. But now he hates the Human Torch.
Yeah, that's right. When did this happen? I don't know how.
Has Spider-Man been in any Fantastic Four issues?
Nope.
No, okay.
I don't think so. So he like catapults this. He slingshots this bat into the crowd, and all the ladies are like, "Help! It's a bat!" And Human Torch says, "Hey, wait a minute. There's something fishy about this bat." And of course, he goes to Peter. They do a whole fight for a little while. There was a nice moment where Spider-Man like parachutes down with his webs, and then he fills his parachutes with sand, and he douses Human Torch with them. I like those panels a lot, like action-wise. But Spider-Man is really just a petty little bitch. That's all that's happening here. The rest of the Fantastic Four is sitting there watching, and Spider-Man like ropes them into the fight. He's like, "Fuck all y'all! I'm gonna fight everybody."
And suddenly they're on the beach. How did that happen?
Yeah,
I think that's where him and
Peter
Peter took the Human Torch out there somehow, which is not the worst idea to try to fight a fire dude near water and sand, in terms of things that will take out fire. I thought it was a good idea.
Sue Storm kind of tries to get them to make up, and he's like, "Nah, forget this. I'm out of here." But he also makes a web heart for Sue. And he gets out of there. So I think Spider-Man was just feeling a little horny, wanted to go hit on some babes, was a little bummed to see Human Torch there.
It seems like he wanted to hit on babes, but also be mean to Johnny Storm for whatever reason. Like these are his two goals, because he was like, "I'm gonna steal Johnny Storm's girlfriend. Nah, I'll steal his sister. These both seem like, I'll hook up with his sister. These are both make Johnny Storm bad, and I'm horny." He's a very relatable character.
Yeah, sure.
Like, literally, doesn't he say like, "I want to hook up with Johnny Storm's girlfriend"? Like that's the first word bubble, right?
Yeah, panel 1 of this story is he's like, Human Torch's girlfriend lives here.
Yeah, like what? He's just creeping on his girlfriend. Like that's weird, man. That's real weird. Don't do that, Peter.
I mean, and this book or this story is not drawn by Steve Ditko. I think it's the first one we've done. I mean, he does ink it.
It's Kirby, yeah.
But it's Jack Kirby, yeah.
I didn't even realize.
Yeah, so it's everything looks a little different because it's Jack Kirby's art of Silver Age Fantastic Four. It's a Spider-Man. He looks like himself, but everything else looks like a Jack Kirby comic. So I wonder, like, was this going to be in an issue of Fantastic Four? Like, what is going on here? This story makes no sense.
That's why I was like, did Ditko like possibly fall behind? And Kirby's like, "I can draw 8 pages. Just give it to me." Like that's what I was wondering. Maybe
that's kind of the sense I get. Like this whole story is the most like villainy story we've done of the first year of Spider-Man. It's it is the payoff to the long-running Flash Thompson thing where Peter finally gets one over on him after just getting like just nagged and mocked for like literally every issue. So that's good. But yeah, this is a weird issue.
It's a very weird issue.
They can't all be winners. They do have that saying.
No.
Yeah. The Living Brain might have come back a couple of times, but he's like, when you consider how often, like literally, you've got like the Lizard, the Sandman, the Vulture, Doc Ock, like these are all like villains that become associated with Spider-Man forever, and then the Living Brain.
Hey, we're getting Electro next issue though.
Yep.
Issue number 9. He's holding a sack with a $sign on it, so I assume he's stealing money.
All of these dudes, other than Chameleon and the Living Brain, have been in movies.
Yeah, amazing.
And there was no J. Jonah Jameson or Betty Brant in this issue.
You're right. This is the first issue without Jonah. Why did I call him Jonah? Anyways, first issue without Jonah. Weird. Anyways, we'll read issue 9 with Electro next time. Hope we get a return from Spider-Man's arch nemesis, J. Jonah Jameson. We're also going to read our main read next time. Ooh, Chris mentioned this earlier in the episode. We're returning to Captain America. We read the Winter Soldier stuff, Volume 1 last time. We're moving on to Volume 2 from the Ed Brubaker, Steve Epting run. We're reading issues 8 through 14, except issue number 10 was a House of M issue. So it's a tie-in, kind of like a separate universe kind of a story. So it's not collected in the same trade as Volume 2. But we're still going to read it anyways. We'll probably read it at the end of the episode after we read the other ones. So we'll continue the whole Winter Soldier story, and then we'll read the House of M tie-in, and then we'll do Spider-Man next time. Right? Yeah. That all sound right?
That sounds right. Cool. Amazing Spider-Man number 9.
Yeah, and just the this Captain America stuff was from the mid 2000s. Volume 2. I didn't write down the name of whatever Volume 2 was supposed to be.
It's probably called The Winter Soldier Volume 2.
Okay, something like
I think.
Yep.
I mean, it's been recollected, and sometimes they collect the whole Winter Soldier like saga in one trade or one omnibus. So it's kind of hard for me to track even.
Yeah.
What it's called.
But that Brubaker era, somewhere in the 2000s, 8 through 14. Yeah. You'll figure.
I think eventually we're going to try to do through issue 42. I think is where it kind of reaches its peak. So. Do it in 7 episodes. We'll check it. But it's also for 4th of July, so that's what we're doing it for.
America, patriotism, hooray! And yeah, I think that's it. What else is going? We haven't recorded in a little bit. Our schedule was a little bit weird. Vince, what's going on with you? You're busy right now.
Yes, I am. I'm moving, so I'll have a new studio for the next recording session. But I've also been working hard at work on That Was a Game on our All My Friends Are Right Here YouTube channel. I just recently covered Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, which is a game where you control. It's like Donkey Kong Country, but you control Donkey Kong with bongos. You hit the right bongo to go right. You hit the left bongo to go left. You clap to attack. It's very weird, but check it out on All My Friends Are Right Here, the YouTube channel. That Was a Game.
Great. Chris, what's going on with you?
We just recently came out with our latest episode of Your Stupid Minds, You, Me, Madness. If you want to see a movie written, directed, and starring the wife of a Trump or what was he, the secretary of something or other.
He wrote me some stimmy checks.
Yes, Steve Mnuchin, his wife, made a vanity project that is, it says right in the trailer that it's a ripoff of American Psycho, so it's good.
Is it an American Psycho ripoff that understands the point of American Psycho?
Oh, no.
Okay.
The point of American Psycho is that he's cool, right?
Yeah,
everyone should be an American Psycho.
He's an aspirational character, right? We want to be like that one, right? Okay.
Yeah, he lives in a nice house with lots of mirrors.
Loves Huey Lewis in the news. What's wrong about him?
Yeah, he kills Jared Leto. I'm not seeing a negative here.
Great. Well, look forward to that. And I don't think I've streamed in like a month here. I'll get back to it. Who knows? Haven't been having much time for video games. I've been staying up late watching wrestling every night. So that's, I wake up right before work and no time to stream. Hey, but we'll get back to it at some point. I know I got some people who are followers of mine. I don't know what I'm going to play. Oh my God, we got babies screaming in the background. It's time to end the episode. We've been going too long. All right, everybody. I love you. This is the most important part of the show. Vince, I love you.
I love you too. As I go on
here. Glad I remembered. Chris, I love you.
Oh no, that robot's gonna tell him all my secrets. I got to go stop it. Not my best work. I'm
starting to feel like maybe Chris doesn't love me. Wow. All right, listener. Well, on that sad note, we love you as well. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.